Righto, good morning and welcome to Wednesday. Welcome back to TJM Farming here on YouTube. My name is Noah, and if you're new around here, we are a West Australian wheat and sheep farm on the bank of the Moore River. Let's skip the formalities, we got stuff to do today. So last night we did technically get the hay cutter going briefly. We put a new arm down there on the main drive between the gearbox and the knife drive, which drives the cutters on the hay cutter here. Dad forgot that we had the borehole cover in that paddock over there, and we struck it. So even though the hay cutter did not hit any kind of rocks or the ground or anything like that, it hit that borehole cover, so stuff is a little bit broken on it. Potentially the bolts that holds knife drive in place. This would be more of a concern because the hay crop is ready to go as we speak. It is nice and milky in the heads, so it's the ideal time to go cut that for hay. We've got rain in the forecast, but today we're just gonna unhook the hay cutter from the tractor because we need to get on to getting some of the other gear sorted. We'll get to all of that in a moment, but first of all, we need to open up the toolbox, get some of these sockets out. I'm thinking we need, try a 15 or a 16 first. Because we need to go over to the hay cutter and get this tyre sorted. For the uninitiated who have joined us midway through this year, last year we had a phone call from Liz and Peter, our neighbours next door, who were struggling to get their hay baled. They requested that we brought the Hay Rake and our John Deere 460M round baler over to their place to help get their hay baled before the rain. Well, this year it's a similar sort of story, although the crop is not as flash this year. Their baler, the Class Roland 66, is playing up. So because the hay is dry and we've got more rain in the forecast again, we really need to get their crop baled as soon as possible. So yeah, when we were trying to put the hay rake away, we were going to park it over by the sprayer there. The tyre blew out on it last year, so I think this is 16. Way too small. Okay, so pretty much in a nutshell, the plan today is Peter's coming over at 8 o'clock. We are going to unhook our hay cutter from the tractor, lift up the hay rake to get the tyre off. Peter's going to take the tyre into town for us to get that fixed. I need to go to town anyway because my car is hopefully going to be ready. It's been sitting there for 7 months. I haven't revealed it properly to you guys because, well, the gearbox shat the tin on me back in March, so it's been sitting in the dealership ever since. They've got the new transmission sorted and that, but the wheel bearing went, so they were fixing that yesterday. Right, so. But yeah, I've been trying to keep to a weekly basis and uploads. That's pretty bloody difficult with how busy things get around here. A lot of the time it's go, go, go when it gets to the silly season. So when it's go, 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 the uploads are slow, if you get what I mean, but I try to upload to shorts. So you'll have no doubt seen all the dramas that have unfolded with the hay cutter, the rake and the baler by now over on the shorts feed. Good morning and welcome to Thursday. We've skipped a day, an entire day's work, because, well, you join us on Little Red Tractor here. We've got the hay rake behind us. We are going over to Liz and Peter's to help bale their hay crop because their baler has broken down. So we're going to use our tractor and baler over there. We've pressed 5 bales already last night. You may have seen the short already on YouTube. So the plan basically is we're going to go around, rake all these rows you see behind me, and get to the gateway, fold this up, bring it through the gateway, and then, yeah. Bring it through the gateway and maybe some paddock and start raking. One of us is going to be raking, the other's going to be baling. We're going to be taking in the hay bale at this year, which is going to be exciting. Get some good content out of that. And yeah. So we still got the middle part of the paddock yet to be cut, and we still got all of that paddock yet to be cut. We've only got a few day window left to really go ahead and get all of that sorted. Now the rocks are the burden in our behind. They will not leave us alone. We found a couple that ended up in the pickup on the Hay Baler, so that's not too good. Not too particularly good at all. But so long as we control them, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Righto, so we got the hay rake set up. For the uninitiated who don't know what a hay rake is, basically this is what you call a windrow. It rakes all the swaths that the mower left behind into one. Go back and watch that last year's video and I'll explain it a bit further. It's starting to rain a little bit. We need to get going. So the goal of mine here is we need to try and keep that middle swath there, ideally in between the forks. See how it's dry on top and wet underneath? That's what the windrower does. Right around the area where that 511 broke. I remember I did the stop pass somewhere around amongst those trees, so I tried telling to let go. Stuff. This is what Peter and Liz were trying to bale up earlier when their baler broke. You can see some more green stuff in the rows that I've already raked. That's the stuff that we've got to watch. Right, so we've got 4 rows raked. As you can see, it's not looking flash at all. Very thin windrows. It'd probably be able to get away with a baler like the Roland 66 that broke down that we're trying to use. This crop, this particular part of this paddock was actually planted by me. I was helping Peter and Liz out putting their crop in with their International 511, which was giving them trouble. The seed rate on that was all over the shop. That's the reason why the stubble here doesn't look like it's held together like it should have. Compare that to the seed rate that you'd find on a combine like our 753 back in our front paddock. Cheese and chalk. Because like some parts you can see where it's very thin, others very thick. That's what it was like seeding time, and that's the result of this really late break to the season that we've had in June. WA's had a late break to the season, so late start, even though this was up and out of the ground when we were putting ours in. The seed rate wasn't there, so yeah, it's pretty thin. And also because of how late it's planted. Remember, our optimal planting time is meant to be April, May, June. You're not supposed to plant in the last week of June. Well, you can because we've done it and we have planted in July before. It's just not recommended unless you've got no other choice, in which case go for your life. Let's take a look at these rows here. You can see all that nice yellow colour. That is the ideal dryness that we want for hay when we go to bale it, because if it's too wet, like let's just walk over here, and show you some of the more wet stuff. Stuff like this. You can see how that's got that green tinge about that. That is still got moisture in it. And well, this would be okay. Just give it a bit of sun and it will turn yellow like the rest. But have a bit too much moisture in there, then you'll need to leave your bales out in the paddock, because if moisture goes through the bale chamber into the actual hay bales and you move the wet bales immediately afterwards, that moisture is a fire risk. Now, that may confuse some people, but it makes sense when you've suddenly got moisture and then you don't. And then if you try to move the bale when it's wet and you move it to the shed, and then the shed gets hot, like in a real hot summer day, like 46 degrees, that moisture goes up and then it basically combusts the bale from the inside out. That's how I understand it. In some other parts of Australia and other parts of the world, they use what they call a tedder, which essentially, if you get rained on and it downpours after you cut this before you go to rake and bale it, what a tedder does is basically it just goes along, flips the grass over, or your hay, or whatever you're cutting for hay. For our case, this is oat hay right here. The tedder goes and flips it over, so it fluffs it up a bit and it helps it to dry a bit more. So when you have like a proper like European spindle rake, which is different to the wheel rake, like it's a proper windrower that folds down with two arms that spins round, those types of hay rakes, when you go along with that, it won't necessarily fluff it up like the wheel rake, because the wheel rake essentially does the same kind of job as a tedder. But this row here, this is what the actual hay cutter cuts. You can see it's how it's thin. That's really why we need a hay rake, because cutting this it'd be all right if it was a little bit thicker like last year on its own with a baler like Peter's, an old class Roland. They don't have very wide pickups, so they can't take very thick crops in. This would be all right with that. But with that thing over there, with a wide pickup, that's what the hay rake's for. The hay rake is supposed to make life easier for the hay going into that baler over there, so we can get more packed in to bigger bales. We've got some bigger stuff over here. Be careful, we need to concentrate a bit more. But yeah, you can see all that green stuff. Here comes the Deutz to take over, because the red's done the half tank. I want to take this home and put some fuel in it and have it on the hay cutter. Peter's going to put his tractor on this rake, then he'll start raking, and I'll jump in the Johnny and start baling. Right, you join us in the baler. And we are baling. We've done about 10 bales so far, so 5 on Liz and Peter's, 5 at home. And the whole aim of driving the baler really is keeping that bar level as we can. That's the reason why I didn't film last year, because last year we didn't have the beeper. So yeah, it's not necessarily driving in a straight line, it's trying to keep those bars as level as we possibly can. And we've got the bales currently set to around 175, so it'll beep at 160, it'll beep again at 170. It beeps to tell you that you're nearly full, and it will beep again to basically say, hey, I'm wrapping the bale now, you better stop. So yeah, that's basically what's going on there. The tricky part this year is because we've got a lot less thick rows, we've got to try and keep that bar level as steady as we can, but also try and pick up all the windrow. 158, so it's going to start beeping again. There we are, that's the first beep. And it's going to tell us at 170. Come on, even up, even up. That end down there, down the bottom, that's basically telling us the net wrap is wrapping. Those 3 beeps there, that's saying the bale chamber's ready to unload. So I pulled this lever and it kicks the bale out. We need to keep that pressure gauge in the green and then we can keep going. Would I say this is a fun job? Yes, because it's like a mini game. They don't have that in farm sim. I wish they did, because in farm sim, sure, the baler does beep, but there's no monitor telling you what's going on in the actual bale chamber. This monitor mounted above the screen because we haven't got anywhere else to bolt it on, and that is basically how a real life baler would work. It tells you what's going on. So yeah, I better keep concentrating. So I'll put the GoPro down for the moment. Yeah, we'll keep going. Right, so after a few hours of baling myself, had a mishap or two. Dad's basically banned me from taking you guys in the tractor cab with me. So that footage that you've seen this morning, I'm not sure if that's going to make it in the final video or not, but that's what baling looks like. You're not going to get any more video footage from the baler cab. That's that. So we've had to redo the net wrap. Dad's taken over just to make sure that everything's working properly. We're going to follow on the gator. We'll have some pretty action shots. Success! That's fixed it. Oh, we're getting pretty close. Okay, so another thing to note is the net wrap we're using is the John Deere extra width wrap. Now, when the bale net wrap gets to the end of the roll, it leaves a red strip like this. This tells you that, hey, you're running out of net wrap, you're gonna need a refill pretty bloody quickly. Now, pretty much every video involving tractors on this channel, that I kept relating it back to Farming Simulator. Farming Simulator 25 was the first official base game to feature net wrap. This specific type of net wrap is indeed included. Although, to my knowledge, the extra wrap from John Deere does not leave that red strip at the end of the roll. It's just stock standard bale net wrap texture. Not very realistic. Like I say, like I kept rattling on and on and on, there's a lot of stuff that Giants could do better. However, this is not Australian Farming Simulator. This is Farming Simulator 25 we're talking about. So it's got to basically cater for everybody across the world. So your Europeans, your South American players, your North American players in Canada, the United States, etc. It's got to cater for everyone. But it wouldn't hurt to make a few things a little bit more realistic in a way. And see, when I was talking about the monitors earlier, like the BaleTrak monitor, which is the example we've got with our 460M silage round baler. Well, Kuhn, I think it's pronounced Krone, Goval, Case, New Holland class, all of those different brands have their own take on that bale wrap monitor, especially for the round balers, that tells you how even that bale is going to be. Because it's a game of keeping it balanced that can make or break how level the bale looks. So some of these, okay, they look fairly straight. Others, not so much. They could be a little bit better. The aim of the game is to try and make it as even as possible. Having said that though, Farming Simulator is a video game at the end of the day that needs to cater to all platforms, so your PC and your consoles. There's only so much that computers in this current day and age can actually handle. But I mean, you know, it would be a nice addition. I mean, another nice addition. Giants, can we have Bindi Sue in the game, please? Having the Australian Kelpie in Farming Simulator 25. Okay, for those who are out of the loop, the latest update for Farming Sim 25 at the time recording this video dropped, and it added border collies, herding dogs. This is fantastic, because now we got two breeds of dogs. We got Labradors for some reason, and border collies. My first childhood dog, Lulu, was a border collie Hunter-Way cross, so this is excellent. It reminds me of when Lulu was round. However, if we're going to have herding dogs and herding animals, so say sheep or cattle, I'm pretty sure Bindi Sue would like to be in Farming Simulator 25, if you get what I mean. Back on topic with how level the round bales are. Here is a good example. You can see that this particular one, I do believe, is around 176 centimeters tall. This is how tall the bale is. When it came out, the BaleTrak monitor in the tractor cab was telling me one side has too much and the other bar was fairly low. So this side, of course, naturally was going to be a lot taller than this side. This is all due to how the windrows are. That's the reason why you want to try and have as straight windrows as possible to make it easier for the baler. Of course, every farm is different, every paddock shape is different. So you're not always going to get a perfect bale every single time. In other news, the hay cutter. As you know, we swapped Little Red off the Hay Rake and we put Peter's Deutz on there. So, where is Little Red? Little Red's back home with the hay cutter. Dad cuts another 1.5 rounds, and then I kid you not, one of the brand new bolts that I got from town the other day, clean in half. It broke again. So we're gonna mothball the hay cutter for now. That's gonna be that for hay cutting 25. We're just gonna need to try and, when Dad's got the time, he'll go ahead and try to get the hay cutter going to cut that love grass in the other paddock. But yeah, that's going to be it for hay cutting 25. And we're just going to go around and bale what we've got. So yeah, that's the situation with that. Last bale of today. No red stripe on that one. G'day, good morning. Now, off the back of the last video, you saw us after we fixed the net wrap issue, that one stuff up I had with the hay baler. We got a couple of things to discuss. It's a bit overcast today. We've had 11 mils of rain yesterday and a little bit more last night. So today, at the time of recording this, 2 weeks ago, the video of trying to get the hay cutter will no doubt have gone out. You'll see this 2 weeks from now. In the last video, you would have seen us with Dad finishing off by baling some hay right before we changed the net wrap over on the John Deere round baler. Shortly afterwards, we ran out of net wrap. You can see here we no longer have one on the storage. We're going to need to get another one, but this is the new wrap. This is the generic wrap. That's not the cover edge. That's the correct term for the John Deere Bale wrap. I went and fitted all that myself, and basically I was running solo over in Liz and Peter's paddock for 2 days because they were off doing sheep stuff. All things considered, everything went well. I didn't record anything because those rows in the neighbouring paddock were curvy, and while we do have auto steer in the tractor, auto steer does not like curves, and it's not set up for next door's paddock. So I was more focused on weaving and trying to make bales with the John Deere baler rather than actually, you know, talking and driving at the same time. After we swapped Little Red off the hay rake and onto Peter and Liz's Deutz, I didn't do any footage of that because, again, doing it solo, I wanted to actually try and get stuff done. So no camera, switched on, focusing. That's what I was trying to do. Well, it worked well on Peter and Liz's Deutz. Little Red came back home while Dad went and troubleshooted the hay cutter. Now, the 489, believe it or not, we did manage to fix it. And you can see these rows behind me. We actually found out the reason why. A couple of bolts sheared clean off that arm between the knife drive and the main arm. We'll go and take a look at the 489. I'll throw some footage up or something. We'll go and show you later on what was actually going on. We actually found that the bolt and the bearing that was holding the header part of the actual machine, that was too far forwards, and so that main arm was knocking. That was causing the bolt to shear. So we ended up straightening that up, put a bolt in, tack welded it, and no more knocking. Sure, the hay cutter still has a squeak, and we may need to figure out what's going on with the teeth that are flicking up in the air from when Dad hit those concrete blocks in the corner. But it did survive for more than 1.5 laps. You can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 laps around the headland, and then we had to stop. We would have kept going. We would have finished cutting that paddock, but the reason why we haven't is because, well, all this faffing around has actually meant it's too late to cut the oats for hay now. The oats are now setting seeds, so as I was demonstrating in the previous video, when I was squeezing these heads, you can see right here, these heads right here, what I'm doing when I'm squeezing those heads is, for it to be cut for hay, you need to have these heads be like a milky dough. That means it's not quite set and it's not tough. You need to have it be at the right consistency to cut it for hay. And if I squeeze it right now, you can sort of see that white stuff on the camera there. That milky dough, that's what we want when we go to cut that for hay. Well, we were planning to finish cutting the rest of this paddock and do the paddock next door, but as you'll see over there, there is a tinge of yellow. This paddock is mostly gravel. That's the reason why the moisture is held on for so long, and that's the reason why the goats over there are still green. That paddock over there, half of it is made up of sort of your more whiter sands. It doesn't hold as much moisture, so it dries off quicker. That's the problem that we have out the paddock as well. The sandy soils do not hold the moisture for as long, so if you have a spell of 3 or 4 weeks with little to zero rain at all, it's going to dry up pretty bloody quick. And that's the reason why all that over there, it is harvestable. It is setting seed. The seed has gone hard. So we just need to wait for the rest of that paddock to turn, and then we can bring the header out and harvest that for seed. So that's basically going to be the plan. The heads are just becoming a bit too hard over there for the haybine to go and cut it. So we decided, right, well, the oats are at the west end. We're not expecting very high yields from them at all. So we need to bulk some extra seed up for next year. This means that we're going to need to bring Johnny Header Mark II down from Canna. We're going to need to find out what's wrong with it. We haven't seen that thing for 4 years. We've got the draper front down. We just need the header itself. So we're going to be bringing the header down, fixing whatever's wrong with it, making sure that it's good to go. And then later on this month, when that has turned, so that'll be late November, early December, we'll be harvesting the rest for seed, and that will go into the silo. Probably need to get a seed cleaner in because, like I say, this is a hay crop at the end of the day. It's got a couple of weeds, so blue lupins, rye, radish, etc. We don't exactly want that in the ideal sense, especially if it's going to end up going into next year's crop, which will no doubt be sent off to CBH. We want clean seed, so we'll need to have a seed cleaner. So in the meantime, we need to let those fresh cut rows over there settle, let those dry off, and then we're going to take Little Red along with the hay rake, rake all that up, and then come back with the Johnny and bale it. Now, for those who are into the statistics, this baler can do up to 180 centimetre round bales, or 8-foot bales, I do believe. 6 foot, 8 foot, ones like that. We got the full mark set to around 170 centimetres, although depending on where we stop and how fast we're going, this can be up to around 175 centimetres, give or take. On the first row that we raked with the hay rake here, we got 5 bales off. So if it yields the same amounts for all 18 rows that we've got here, that's 6 windrows with the hay rake, meaning that we'll get roughly about 30 bales off it. That's 30 bales that we've done with our own crop. On top of that, we made a deal with Liz and Peter to have a share of 20% of the bales that we baled over there earlier on this week, as well as some of the excess that they still got left over from last year. So in total, there were 153 successful bales that I made over there, meaning that we'll probably get around another 20 to 30 bales. So let's say it's 20 bales. 30 plus 20, that's 50. 50 bales of our own. We got 60 off them last year, and on top of that, we'll have the excess. So that'll probably bring us up to around 70 bales total for our summer feed supply. So without further ado, let's go over and see the hay cutter and find out what it's looking like at the moment. It's funny how 3 weeks ago I had no idea what I was looking at when it came to this. Well, I've since learned the machine and now I can walk you around it pretty good. In a nutshell, these hydraulics control the hydraulic ram that raises and lowers the shaft over here, the axle that broke earlier on this year. You will see it in the video that goes live today, which will be 2 weeks ago by the time you see this video. Now, when I was talking about the knife drive, I'm talking about the cutter bar down here. Haybine mower conditioners, basically the front looks like a tug-along swaffer or a header comb, or for those outside of Australia, this would look like open front combine harvester header. Essentially, the reel does the same job, and so does the knife drive down there. The knife drive are those points there that you can see poking out. That connects over here to that shaft down there. That's the main arm that hooks up to the gearbox, otherwise known as the wobble box. The wobble box is powered by the PTO shaft, which also in turn runs these pulleys which drive the reel. The reel, the rollers, and the knife drive all run simultaneously, and the speed of how everything operates here is controlled by how much oomph the tractor is putting into the PTO shaft. When we first pulled this out of the shed earlier this year, it was not looking great. Initially, I thought it was just going to be the hydraulics on the way out. Believe it or not, the hydraulics were the least of our concerns, because the torsion bar, which is the axle, that snapped at the weld there. We had to take it off, get it re-welded. Half an hour drive down south as per recommendation from Liz and Peter. We got that welded on a Saturday, put it back on. It briefly worked, then the bearing went on the rollers, so we had to fix that. And then in amongst this, that bolt there was not there, so the header was forward slightly, or slightly offset, so it was causing that main arm down there to knock the actual header plate shielding over here. That's what caused the old main arm to finally let go and shear the bolt. We obviously found that the old main arm from the previous owners, whoever was running this sketchy machine before us, they had that main arm welded to the spline on the bottom of the gearbox. So you would have seen us do that in the last video, taking the gearbox out of the machine. We had to put it on the back of the Kubota. We did a lot of angle grinding and welding and trying to fix it. We separated the main arm from the spline and put it back together how it should be done, with washers and the bolt, how New Holland originally intended for this thing to be. But welding cast iron, as those who weld a lot of metal would know, welding cast iron is not a good idea with a MIG. So of course, for the 5 seconds that was running, it worked beautifully, no knocking, and then it snapped again. We had no main arm. So we were at an ultimatum. We had to mothball the haybine for the time being, so we went over to help Liz and Peter because their baler didn't work. In the meantime, we got the new arm put into place and fixed the knocking noise, because those two counterweights down there, those blocks on the top with those two bolts, they were banging against that shielding there, so it was making a knocking noise. And well, it kept shearing bolts, 2 bolts to be exact. One was the old one found in the toolbox tray here. The other was the bolts that I got in town the day that I got my car back. And so once again, we had to mothball the hay cutter because Dad needed to go back to work. When he finally got on his off swing on Tuesday this week, because we had the coal ewes and weather lambs going off on the truck, said see you later to them. So no more sheep in that paddock for the time being. In the meantime, between the truck arriving and departing with the sheep, we found that hole there was making this bend out of shape. It must have happened while we were trying to fix the torsion bar. So Dad put the bolts in there, we lined it up, and we tack welded it into place, and it fixed it. Well, for now anyway, because the knife drive still has some squeaking. I'm really wishing we pulled this out a lot sooner than we had, because if we had pulled it out of the shed a lot sooner than early October, then we would have had the entirety of the hay crop cut. But it is what it is. We're just dealing with the cars that we're dealt with, and well, we're still gonna get something harvested for seed at the end of the year. So, final evaluation. How did the 489 go? And have I given it a new nickname? To put it lightly, that thing makes the behaviour of the fucking merinos. The merinos are angels compared to that. Dare I say it, we're gonna call it the effing haybine from now on, because of how much of a drama it has been. But no, I think the kinks may be ironed out from it. We did try to cut love grass after finishing off with the hay Didn't like it very much, but then a lot of mowers don't love grass, so yeah, it's sitting here for the time being. When the raking and the baling is all finished, we'll take the hay cutter around, wash it down, blow everything out, grease it, put it away in the shed for next year. So yeah, that's basically the updates with everything on the farm at the moment. We'll pause this video here because I need to film another video, and yeah, we'll see you when we get back to the actual hay work.